Hello and welcome to the Offers Training 101. We're going to go through the platform today, talk about how to best use our smart data, how to launch campaigns, and how to get the most out of our program. What we'll be covering today is some basic use of our platform itself. So most of you have already logged in and probably checked it out, but we're going to go a little bit deeper on how to best search for smart data, how to create lists, and more importantly, how to launch campaigns. And then within those campaigns, we're going to talk about best practices, what campaigns to use at what point in time. Before we begin, I'd like to talk a little bit about smart data. For those of you who are not too familiar with exactly what smart data is, I want to make sure you got the basics. Number one, we call these smart leads. Now, smart leads are essentially homeowners that we predict are potentially going to sell in the next 12 months. We use consumer data, property data, behavioral data, life event data, and we process this algorithm on an ongoing basis. So smart leads will come in and out of your list from month to month. We measure accuracy by matching this up with recently listed and also recently sold properties. So if properties have been listed or sold, they will most likely be taken off that list. And then, of course, new properties will be added on. The algorithm runs on an ongoing basis, so we got to make sure that we're always hitting those top scoring properties, which we call smart leads. Now, of course, the reason why smart leads are also very powerful is because we've greatly reduced the number of homeowners that you need to really outreach and market to. Now, we've given you every homeowner, but you want to focus on the ones that we scored over 70. These are called the smart leads. And of course, even though we've reduced your farm by at least 60-70%, you'll still maintain about 70% of listings will be in that grouping we call smart leads. And this is where we're going to focus our marketing. This is where we're going to focus our campaigns. And if we do that on a consistent basis, you're going to get results. Of course, while you're launching campaigns and marketing to these smart leads, we are also constantly surveying homeowners within your area. We do this in two ways. We're phone calling, but we're also marketing to them on the internet through Facebook and Google. We're trying to ultimately look at our scoring and high scoring properties and basically verify our score on an ongoing basis. Now, not every homeowner is going to respond to our campaigns, but as they do, this will help us refine our scoring on an ongoing basis as well. Now, if we do actually happen to identify a homeowner that's thinking of selling, then we'll, of course, adjust the score real time, and they will show up at the top of your list. And this is important when you're looking for tags. For example, lookup as well as verified tags. Look for those tags as part of a way to identify those people that are potentially going to list sooner rather than later. And of course, finally, as part of our product is we give you the ability to brand yourself to these homeowners. And this is really where you need to pick up the ball and ultimately move forward with it, is that as we provide the smart data leads, to really work those smart data leads through multiple channels and multiple types of campaigns, which we'll dig into here in a minute. So now let's talk a little bit about the platform and how to actually access your smart data. Well, when you first log in, you'll see a couple of ways of accessing your smart data. You can click on people and just click on search, or click on one of the following tags like smart leads, etc., and you'll see it loads up a screen that shows all of your leads. Searching your smart data, you can slice and dice the data any way you'd like. You can search under different territories. You can search by status. You can search by keyword. And also you can search through using our tagging system. We tag properties based on different descriptive tags, like if it's on the recently expired, or if it's a FSBO, or if it's a verified or a lookup, etc. And then, of course, from this screen, you can also save any search criteria that you create so that you can easily access it later. And then also you can click and download that data, that search criteria easily from there as well. Now, while you navigate this, you'll see some very simple things, and we'll go into more detail in the demonstration later, but you can easily track activity by clicking on what we call a touch or a status. Now, a touch is essentially every time you touch or market to a smart lead, we want to track that. The ideal scenario is you want to at least hit 10 touches in a short period of time. This ensures that they've seen your brand and, of course, they've seen and heard from you. The other component is status, changing the status from hot, warm, cool, or to nurture. And these statuses are used to easily kind of build out a pipeline to know which ones are hot, meaning that you've communicated to them and they've expressed interest in potentially listing, warm, cool, etc. And of course, you can leverage your own tags on an ongoing basis to continue to enhance and make sure that you know what leads are coming from where, And you can do that as well to enhance even more so how you track activity. And once you click on a touch and you can add a note, of course, adding documentation to each property allows you to track all your activity over time. If you talk to them or want to add certain notes so it can be reminded later, you can do that all from here. And then finally, you can save your searches, meaning like, let's say I want to produce a search of give me all the smart leads that have been recently added in the last 30 days. You can save that search and then access that search by loading that search later to make it easy for you to continually view those searches. And then also we'll talk a little bit about how easy it is to download those results once you save that search as well under launching campaigns, which makes it easier for you to consistently keep up with the right people with the right message. And then within campaigns, it's essentially when you click on campaigns and launch a campaign, you'll see a screen that allows you to launch any sort of campaign that you want. Now, a campaign is essentially you communicating your message and your brand to homeowners. It could be a one-to-one campaign, which you can launch from a a property detail page, or a one-to-many campaign that you can launch from here. Now, there are different types of campaigns and different obvious marketing channels, and we'd like to kind of explain a little bit on what's the best thing to use at the right time, and we'll talk about that in best practices. But essentially from here, you can launch a direct mail campaign, a social media ad campaign, email campaign, call campaign. And some of these you can do through our platform very easily, and some of them we just give you instructions on how to set it up outside of our platform. When you go to launching campaign, you can either launch a campaign again through the offers.com platform, or you can also use a third-party provider by downloading the data. A lot of you might have already a direct mail house that you prefer to use. It's more cost effective, and they already have your artwork. So you can simply download the list that you've created and leverage existing third-party providers. There are three primary types of campaigns. We call first touch, first impression, and follow-up. And this is just an easy way to kind of understand the mindset and the power of each marketing channel and when it's best used. When we talk about first touch, we're talking about the first time that they actually see your brand. And of course, this is where direct mail and online advertising can be the best use of that. So when you want to introduce your brand to somebody, you can advertise or market to them directly using our smart data. Then once you actually want to reach out and connect with that person, talk to them or email them directly, we call this the first impression. And the reason why we call it the first impression is this is the first time they've actually had an impression to meet you. Now, they might have seen your advertisements and so forth, and they might even engage with your advertisements. But really, the first impression is the first time that they actually see what you're all about. And we want to make sure the first impression is a positive one, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then finally, once you've connected to that property owner and they get to know you, from here on out, pretty much every other touch is going to be a follow-up touch, whether it be a nurturing touch if they're not looking to list, or if they are looking to list in a period of time, a follow-up touch is going to drive that user or that person to ultimately, hire you to list their home. And all the marketing channels that you can imagine, you can be leveraging smart data, whether it be direct mail, email, phone, online ads, voicemail, text messaging, letters, etc. All these channels can be used effectively to take your smart data and start generating and building your pipeline. And the other option that you have is downloading lists. And of course, downloading lists is very simple. You can download one of our standard lists, or if you saved a search, as we mentioned in our previous section, then you can actually download that list as well. And what's cool about that is as you save your different searches and so forth, it's very easy to get in and out, download those lists and run campaigns. Whether you might do it through a third party like a direct mail house, or if you already own a email campaign software like MailChimp or Constant Contact, you can use that. So whatever type of campaign that you're using, you can easily access our data one way or the other. And of course, if you ultimately want to launch the campaign through offers, we offer the ability to do one-to-many email, one-to-many voicemail, letters, direct mail, and text messaging. You can do that through our system as well. Very easy with a couple points of clicks. We also offer a few different templates that you can leverage, and then it'll be sent directly through our system. And so now it's pretty much the most important component of the demonstration. You've learned a little bit about the platform, how to access the data, and of course we provide videos and articles on how to drill into that in more detail. And then you saw that how you can launch a campaign, whether it be you download the data and launch through a third party or launch it internally. You can do that all through the campaign section. But now I want to really focus on best practices. When it comes down to how to market to homeowners, it's very important that you choose the right campaign at the right time. So first, there's a couple general guidelines for campaigns. When we talk about the first touch, this is an area that's very important because a first touch campaign is really about building branding and building trust. The more people see your brand, whether it be on Facebook or if they see direct mail pieces or whatever it might be, the more comfortable they are with you. So when you actually do reach out to them, they might have already a built up trust and a brand recognition. So it's a less of a cold first impression. The first impression is really when you first reach out to the person and make that first impression, which of course is a very valuable thing. And we always encourage people to stray away from being a solicitation and more about creating a solid first impression that can not only break the ice, but also provide some value to the homeowner. And we're going to talk about some of our best practice campaigns in a minute. And then finally, the follow up. You always want to make sure you follow up consistently on an ongoing basis, multiple touches, and also using multiple marketing channels. Just using one channel typically falls short of what you need to do. So if all you're doing is emailing with no phone or dropping voicemails or anything like that, it could fall short of what you want to achieve. It's important to understand the right type and tone of each touch is key. So type and tone meaning you want to make sure that when you're communicating to a homeowner that you're not overstepping your bounds. If they've never heard of you or they don't know you, then obviously any sort of solicitation could come off wrong. So you want to build a relationship by creating a nice first touch, good first impression, and then once you've actually connected with that homeowner, you can start to move toward obviously pushing your product. The reality is that once they understand that you're a real estate agent, they understand that if they're thinking of listing or if they have somebody that can refer, it's a very simple connection to make. So you don't have to over solicit. And I think it's more importantly to have context of your communication be something other than real estate in many cases in order to build that relationship and that trust that's required. But the tone of any campaign, when you're talking about first touch, should be a broader call to action, really more about branding, providing something of value. It doesn't have to be of high value, but for example, a free home evaluation, etc. And some of the best marketing channels to use for first touch are like direct mail, Facebook, and Google. You get a larger audience. You get an impression. You can create those multiple impressions and start building your brand and your recognition there. Then we move to first impression is when you actually reach out to them. And this is really what we call the permission touch, meaning the first impression is really how you can ultimately start building that relationship. And you don't want to build a relationship based off of, hey, give me something, I need something, versus the opposite should be true, which is you're offering something. You want to make sure you connect with them personally. And then again, this is a relationship starter. So a lot of times you want to provide something of value, but maybe a little bit more value than what you did on the first touch. It could be a variety of things like an invite to an event or a high value offering of a different sort. We're going to talk about these best practices campaigns in a minute. And then with the first impression, obviously, this is where you start leveraging things like voicemail, phone, email, social media message, etc., which is a much more of a one-to-one type of touch. And then finally, the right type and tone for a follow-up. And it could be a little bit more aggressive, and obviously, because it is follow-up and nurturing, you can start to integrate some solicitation, and of course, making sure that you showcase a lot of the experience of what's going on in the neighborhood, or sharing things like your newsletter, or even if things like event-based stuff like holidays and so forth, and if using some of the more powerful mediums, broadcast mediums like email, voicemail drops, text messaging, even if now that it's personal, can be leveraged here as well. And so it's important to understand the basics of when you're communicating, building out, and doing smart farming, you want to make sure that your brand and your communication to every homeowner is positive and offering something of value. So let's go ahead and dig into some campaign ideas. These are best practice ideas that you can implement very easily, and we're going to walk through the 9 of them today so that you have some ideas on how to best leverage your smart data to immediately start seeing value. So campaign idea 1 is one of the more powerful campaigns that we've used in the past and we continue to use today, which is the home value campaign. We enable you to easily launch what we call a smart site that allows users to log in and look up their home value. And you can market this through a variety of channels. But the most important thing you have to understand is you're giving the homeowner something, a free home value report. And this is just a great way to create a good first impression. Now, if you offer it through a Facebook advertisement or through an email blast or even through a direct mail campaign, you can drive them back to a site where they can get this value. And what's important is that we also are using this campaign to verify our data, but we're doing it in a more generic way. So what we're suggesting you do is launch a custom smart site with your branding and put some advertisements and also some marketing out there with your branding to drive the same value proposition, but again, to start building up those first impressions and those first touches. Campaign idea two, which is a very powerful one, is what we call an event campaign. Now, an event can be anything. It can be something that you specifically are hosting, like an open house or a happy hour or a holiday event. You want to invite some people from your neighborhood. Or it could be an event that already is existing in your neighborhood that you may not have anything to do with, but you can work with them and help them promote their event because you have so much data that can be leveraged. So it could be a high school football thing, or it could be a local charity event, or whatever it might be. You can help market that event in your own way. Again, enhancing your brand, showing their brand, being connected to the community, and more importantly, getting people to engage. Because again, this is another great way to create that first impression. This is not about you. I'm trying to help out a local event. I want to invite you. You're providing something of value. So the value proposition to the homeowner here is, hey, here's an invitation to the event. A third type of campaign idea is a local business promotion. This has worked dynamo across all markets, and we have a lot of agents leveraging this. And what they do is they basically go to local businesses and they create a promotion with that local business. And typically, the local business is excited because they're bringing a lot of data and ability to market to potentially thousands of homeowners in an area. And so, whether it's a new sushi restaurant that might have opened up downtown, or maybe it's a retailer that's having a Christmas promotion, or whatever it might be, you can work with that business and provide a promo to people in your database. And whether you focus on promoting on Facebook or you promote it through an email blast, you could get, again, providing something of value out to your homeowners. They're going to look at you, again, as a local expert, and more importantly, they're going to be able to get value on day one. So instead of soliciting them for business, again, here's another element or example of how you can provide something of value, still having your branding part of it, still elevating your brand in their mind and building trust, and then also earning some equity so that when you do turn around and start to begin to ask them for information about if they're thinking of listing, they're more likely to respond. Again, this is all about building equity in a relationship. A lot of people don't have success in marketing because their first touch and their first impression is all solicitation. And what we're trying to do here is build layers of a relationship prior to making that move. The reality is, as I mentioned before, is all these campaigns will include your branding. And your branding as a realtor will certainly transcend to the person looking at this going, oh, this person's a real estate agent. So they don't really need much more than that to understand the connection. And I think that's important to kind of note. Another campaign idea is a survey campaign. Now, we talked a little bit about a home value survey, but what I'm talking about here is just surveying based on anything that you could want to come up with. It could be something fun, like what's the best restaurant in the area, where's the best place to get coffee. You can really engage your neighbors with surveys because everybody wants to have their opinion heard. Or if you want to do something a little bit more scientific, you could do some surveys about the area, or say you're doing research because as a realtor, you want to make sure anybody looking to move to the area knows more about the area, etc. So surveying what people's likes and dislikes are, etc. Really, at the end of the day, it's just about you communicating and asking people their opinion. Again, showing value is really sharing the results of the survey when it's done. So people are very curious of who their neighbors are and who they live next to. And so again, this is a great campaign that you can use. And there's tools out there like surveymonkey.com or Typeform that make it very easy to launch a survey. And you could push surveys out both on the phone, email, etc. Again, leveraging our smart data to engage the audience. Now here's more of an old school idea, but it's still very, very powerful, which is the just sold, just listed. And a lot of you are probably doing this in the direct mail category already, but also might think about doing this on Facebook and through email. It's a very powerful thing to say, hey, I just sold or listed a home in your neighborhood. You can shed some light on price values, where they are, market trends, etc. But more importantly, also, this can drive them to, potentially push them to a receiving a house value report on your smart site, or you can push them to some of the other campaigns. So it's a good way of saying, hey, something just happened in your neighborhood, you should know about it. But more importantly, I was the primary driver of that. Another campaign idea is an email newsletter. I'm sure many of you have either thought about doing this or doing this today. But I know another thing that you have to kind of consider with an email newsletter is it's not just about putting out what's currently listed or what's currently sold, but you can add other components to it. We've already mentioned things like local business promos. We've already talked about finding out what your value or home is. So start incorporating some of these other cool campaign ideas into your email newsletter. And also include things like marketing insights and 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 other value add that can allow for homeowners to learn more about their neighborhood. But this is a very powerful way to immediately start getting value out of smart data leads. Another idea is a fundraiser. Now, what's happening and what trends are happening, which is very interesting to see, is a lot of people are doing what were called micro fundraisers. So you'll see things in the neighborhood that mean, like for example, you might need a new park bench down at the dog park, or you might need to raise a little bit of money to help fix a fence. It doesn't have to be a large amount of money. It doesn't have to be a big concept of fundraiser, and it doesn't have to be necessarily a charity, but it can be. But what's cool about it is you're engaging your homeowners that are in the area around a cause, and cause marketing is very powerful because it builds your equity, brand equity, very rapidly, and people start to look at you as a good person. But it's easy to launch a very small GoFundMe campaign. Find something in your neighborhood that's meaningful that people will relate to. And what a great first touch and great first impression to say, hey, I'm trying to raise a little bit of money. I've already put $100 into it, or and it's raising $500 to fix up this thing, and fix up our gate, or put flowers, or beautify the neighborhood, whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be a grandiose thing. It can be something very simple. Campaign number 8 is really a simple one. Sometimes the easiest campaign is just saying, hey, would you like to grab a cup of coffee? Now, a cup of coffee is just a item of value. You could obviously also say, hey, do you want to go grab a beer? But whatever it is, I think it's important to understand that sometimes when you actually have somebody that you might think of has a high likelihood of listing, or you want to make sure that you meet with this person, simply just reaching out and offering something simple like this can go a long way. We have a lot of clients that actually do go even beyond that and offer a cup of coffee to the entirety of the neighborhood. And what they do is they bring in coffee into their office, or they find a common venue like a coffee shop. And then, 4, 5, 6 people might show up to grab the coffee. It's a great way to introduce yourself, maybe have a 5 to 10 minute conversation, and off they go. It's again another way to kind of cycle through the smart leads, and it could be an ongoing thing. Maybe it's every Friday or every other Friday, and you start to create a trend where people can come in, you can connect with them, and build those relationships. You'd be surprising how powerful something simple like this can be. And finally, the last campaign idea that we have, leveraging smart data, is really diving into the social media elements. You can connect with people on social media, especially the smart data leads, by through whether it be adding events and uploading those smart data leads into there so that you can invite them to events, or whether it be targeting them and asking them to like your Facebook page, or if it's just basically communicating directly to them through Twitter, through Instagram, etc., so that they constantly start following you on the social feed. This is another great way to speak to those homeowners directly through your natural brand. And I think it's important to note here that if you're not active on social media because you think it's a lot of work, or you think it's a waste of time, one of the things that we've seen that's very powerful is if you just kind of share very, very real moments, and really kind of let people see you for who you are through your social media, it can really build some brand equity, and it can really start to help connect people. Actually, more people are more likely to respond to a Facebook message versus an email these days. And so by leveraging these new mediums to communicate to the homeowners is something that you should obviously consider. And so in conclusion, what we walked through today is real simple. We talked a little bit about smart data and why it's important to hit all the smart data leads on a consistent basis. That's the name of the game. We've already reduced the number of people that you have to talk to down dramatically, but those small group, you need to make sure that your brand is in front of them on an ongoing basis. We talked about how you can launch campaigns in a variety of marketing channels to hit that minimum of 10 touches. Each homeowner needs to be touched at least 10 times. And whether that means they see your ad or your campaign on Facebook, whether they receive your email, got a voicemail, phone call, whatever it might be, you got to make sure you build up those touches in order to really start building that pipeline. And finally, you want to make sure that you're consistent and patient. Consistent meaning that all your branding is aligned, and as you touch these people on an ongoing basis, they can connect the dots and know that it's you that's been obviously communicating to them, so they can build some brand and recognition in their head. And also be patient, because understand that it takes time for people to have marketing sink in. It's also going to take time to build up that pipeline, because you need to make sure that you're constantly marketing to those people, at least for the first 3 to 6 months, to ensure that when and if they are thinking of listing, that you're top of mind and you're first in the door. And so finally, we offer support and training resources, not only within the application itself, but for those who want to attend new trainings or want to attend training again, you can obviously do that at any point in time. We also provide training videos, as well as a help desk that you can access. And then, of course, if you have any issues regarding the software, or logging in, or using the product, you can email support@offers.com, and then we will create a ticket for you and work through those issues as quickly as we can. Thank you again for attending today's training. I look forward to talking in the future.